Now, Sports Talk with Brodes. Here's Hunter Brody.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome to Sports Talk with Brodes. I figured the best way to pass the time as we wait for the news that Carson Wentz has been traded to the Chicago Bears, to the Indianapolis Colts, to somebody else, as we wait for that to drop. Why not do an Ask Me Anything podcast? I thought the last time we did this, it was phenomenal. It seemed as if the people really enjoyed it. So why not? What the hell? Throw questions your way, and I will respond. And we will start right off with Chuck from Philly, who asks, what are my thoughts on the Super Bowl and Tom Brady winning his 7th? Well, look, it was phenomenal that Tom Brady went out there and did it again. Todd Bowles and that defense deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, Tom Brady gets the headlines. The defense was sensational. They also smelled blood. When that offensive line of Eric Fisher and all that didn't play out as expected, well, guess what? You're screwed. And what I mean by they haven't played out as expected, we knew going into the matchup that it would be a problem, but I meant in terms of them being healthy for the Super Bowl to begin with. You know you're damaged goods. And I thought that it was such a weird philosophy to change 3 positions around instead of just 1. They're moving pieces all over the place. And we have that debate all the time here in Philadelphia because, well, Stoutland says that he doesn't want to move pieces around. He'd rather have one hole in one area. For example, let's put it in perspective here. If the Eagles are going to miss their left tackle, why move Lane Johnson from right tackle to left tackle, have someone slide into right tackle for Lane Johnson, and then have someone slide into right guard for whoever filled in for Lane Johnson at right tackle when you can keep Lane Johnson in his position? You can keep whoever's playing right guard in his position. And then you just fill the hole at left tackle. But they elected to go all over the place, and that really caused an issue, and Pat Mahomes was running for his life. But I loved everything out of Tom Brady. I really did. The fact that him and Honey Badger were going back and forth. What are you thinking going after him? Now, I know Honey Badger had some words to say, oh, Tom Brady would never repeat that. Whatever. He could just be trying to make it not look as bad. But at the end of the day, you're in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady, and you think it's a smart idea to piss him off? You think it's a smart idea to get into his face? What a joke. You got to make sure that you keep your energy out there on the field to make plays defensively instead of running your damn mouth. He got way too emotional. You could see that heading into halftime, that he was out of whack, out of sorts. And I was watching it with a bunch of friends, and they thought that maybe that would be the difference in the Chiefs coming out in the second half red hot, fired up, ready to go, because their leader was showing that type of fight, that type of care, that type of passion. But you can tell when an athlete crosses the line. There's a level of emotion that you play with. And when you cross the line, it could be a downfall of your play. It could be a downfall of your team. And I thought that was the case. Now, the argument of the flags in the first half and in that second quarter, was that a problem? I didn't love it. I didn't love the ticky-tackness. I didn't love the refs throwing the flags. I'm here to watch the Super Bowl. I'm here to watch these two compete at a high level. You don't need to be throwing all this nonsense. There were some that I thought were warranted and deserved, even though that fans might not like it. And I thought others were a little unrealistic. Maybe the ball wasn't catchable, or whatever the case may be. The Mike Evans pass interference down the left sideline where he got tripped up, that was a hot topic. At the end of the day, though, that caused Mike Evans, it wasn't a lot, but it caused Mike Evans to fall over, and who knows what could have happened on that play. It was taken to an extreme by the refs, but I don't think that was the reason why the Chiefs lost. What does this mean, though, for Andy Reid? Does his legacy get hit at all? I don't think so, because he won last year. If he didn't win last year, it's a different conversation. Then it's, wow, he couldn't do it with Donovan. He couldn't do it with Pat Mahomes against the Niners, and he couldn't do it against Tom Brady again. This would have been his second shot against Tom Brady. Then the narrative is clearly different. But winning last year bought him time. I do think it's funny to look at it from a Bruce Arians standpoint. What if they win again next year? What if the Bucs win again next season? Now Bruce Arians is all of a sudden some coach that has 2 Super Bowls and he's great and amazing. Not that he never was. He always was an upper echelon coach that had a lot of respect in this league, that everybody enjoyed as a coach. I'm not trying to take shots at Bruce Arians, but what it would make me do, right or wrong, is look at Bill Belichick and go, huh? And that's not to say he would be a bad coach without the championships with Tom Brady. Of course, that's not what I'm saying. But if in 2 years, Bruce Arians goes from this respected coach to a 2-time Super Bowl winner with Tom Brady, naturally, I'm going to look at Bill Belichick and go, huh? Now, Bill Belichick has time to rewrite that script, but I'm just telling you personally how I would kind of look at it for sure. And I think it's fair to do that. Wherever Tom Brady goes, they win. We will never, ever, 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 ever see the domination that we are seeing. 7 Super Bowls. 7 Super Bowls. 7 wins. Being there 10 times. And it's funny, I tweeted this out during the game because you saw a 3-and-out early from Tom Brady. Uh-oh. Is he nervous? As if Tom Brady is going to be nervous. To him, it's a damn preseason game. It has the same energy to it because he's so used to being there. I can only imagine the difference in your feelings, in your gut feelings, when you go out, run out the tunnel for the first time, and then your 10th time. How it's so much easier to take a deep breath and really analyze what's going on. How the preparation leading up to the game just feels like another game. Obviously, it wasn't entertaining because it was so dominant. But I enjoyed watching JPP and Shaq Barrett go up. I enjoyed watching White at the linebacker position make plays. It wasn't the entertainment value that we all wanted, that we all thought about before the game started. But watching Tom Brady do that again, you got to embrace it. You got to enjoy what you're watching. Because in 30 years, when you look back and you tell your kids that, oh, you didn't watch Tom Brady, though, and they try and sell you that whoever is in their time is the best ever. No! No! Go to your room! That's what I would say to him. Shut the fuck up! You're not eating! All right, I went too far. You get my point, though. Let's move on to some Eagles conversation. We'll transition from the Super Bowl to the Eagles. And the way that we have this set up, similar to what we did last time, we'll keep it structured so it's all the Eagles questions, all the Sixers, Phillies, Flyers, and kind of keep it so we're not bouncing all around and going crazy. JT from Texas chimed in and said, where will Carson Wentz end up? And do I think that he will succeed in another system? Considering here there's shitty O-line play, shitty receivers. And I think you look at last year, and I was very vocal about this, and I was pretty consistent on how I felt about Carson Wentz. While Carson Wentz sucked, while Carson Wentz was terrible, while Carson Wentz missed throws, to think that the downfall of this organization and everything that we've seen from the Super Bowl to now lies on one man's shoulders, that's ridiculous. That is such a pathetic mindset, even though he played poorly. The offensive line was atrocious. He didn't have great weapons. The entire team was flawed. The head coach was terrible at play designs. Way too many vertical routes. With an offensive line that couldn't hold any kind of blocks, here you go. You're going to use the most vertical routes in the NFL. Please, Doug Peterson, tell me how that's a great idea. You don't run the football with Miles Sanders. You don't run Carson Wentz out of the pocket when he is so strong. He's so strong at rolling to the right and making a throw on the run. And don't tell me, well, Carson checked out all those plays. No, he didn't. He didn't check out of all of those plays. He just didn't. I know that might fit your narrative, but that's not the case. Doug Peterson's play designs weren't very strong. And that's the reality of the situation. That's one of the reasons why he is no longer here as the coach. Will he succeed in another system? I think so. I don't think Carson Wentz is screwed and just terrible. I will say I do think it matters, though, where he goes. Chicago's desperate right now. Everyone's fighting for their lives. Matt Nagy, is he going to lose his job? What does he have to do to keep his job? They are desperate to make sure that they prove to the ownership, to the front office, we are good. But they lack in areas. They have a solid defense. You talk about their weapons and their playmakers and Matt Nagy as a whole. There are some concerns there. Let's not act as if this is some high-powered situation that he's walking in offensively. With the Indianapolis Colts, though, and I'm not trying to make this a Frank Reich Press Taylor thing, but I want to make it an overall team thing. The weapons, the offensive line. I do think just because there's not as much pressure, there's not as much stress, you're not walking into this high, intense situation. Because Frank Reich's not going to get canned. They're not just going to move along from these guys. And you also have a phenomenal defense on the other side. The Bears do too. So they both have strong defenses. But the general vibe surrounding this team is Matt Nagy and this coaching staff and everybody involved have their asses clinched because they think that there's a good chance if it doesn't go smooth and if it doesn't operate cleanly, that your ass is out of town. That you're going to be fired, and then now here comes a whole new coaching staff, and what's going to happen? Now, John DeFilippo is in Chicago, and I guess I'm kind of answering the first part of your question, which is where will Carson Wentz end up? I do think it's between the Colts, and I do think it's between the Bears. Those are obviously generating the most buzz, and I think there's reason to it. Now, maybe there's a surprise team going to get thrown in the mix, but I also think that's Howie Roseman doing the due diligence of making sure the price gets driven up, saying, hey, I think that there's a third team involved. And as much as we all hate Howie Roseman, that's what a good general manager would do. Not that I'm claiming that Howie Roseman is some stud general manager. He's got flaws. He has good parts of his job as well that nobody gives him credit for. But I do think maybe driving up the price is something that's happening here. But if I had to guess, it's clearly between Chicago Bears, Indianapolis Colts. I think the pressure of both situations is different, and I think he will succeed, but it's got to be something that's catered to him. And to think that, oh, that's such a Carson Wentz problem, that's where I have the issue. 95% of this league, the quarterback needs to be in a good environment, with a good coaching staff, with a good system around them, with good weapons, with a good team. You want to talk about Brady being able to make nobodies fantastic? Okay. You want to talk about Aaron Rodgers? Okay. And Aaron Rodgers has won Super Bowl in his amazing tenure, and he's frustrated that the front office isn't giving him everything that he thinks he deserves. You want to talk about Drew Brees? Okay. You saw that he needed help. The difference with Michael Thomas involved, Michael Thomas not involved. And now he's clearly on the whole 18 here of his career. If not, it's over. He's walking into the clubhouse. So that played a big factor in his arm strength and what they can do offensively and all. My point is, I do think he can succeed. I think it matters on the environment, and I think it's okay for it to matter on the environment. Matthew Stafford, everyone's like, oh, Matthew Stafford, you're amazing. You're stuck in Detroit. So here's an example of a guy everyone thinks is a really successful quarterback, a really solid quarterback, which he is, but because of his environment, he's not able to be successful. He's not even to win playoff games. They're not able to get to the playoffs. Yet it's okay for Matthew Stafford to struggle because the environment's not smooth. But if it's Wentz, he's a baby, and he's a crying loser, and he's a bitch. Do you see the disconnect? Do you see the problem? It's a shame that the Eagles are here. It's ridiculous, and it's truly embarrassing that the front office allowed for this to happen. This is so many problems snowballing into this. This is a Lurie issue. This is a Roseman issue. This is a Doug Peterson issue. It's a Wentz issue. It's an injury issue. It's a drafting issue. There's 30 million things. It's not just one guy. It's not just one mistake. It's so many mistakes over time that has now dominoed into where we are today. Carson Wentz is not a scrub quarterback. He's not. There are Eagles fans out there that think that way. And there are Eagles fans out there that are so happy that the Eagles are in this position. Whether you like Wentz or not, how can you be happy with this situation? The fact that you got what you wanted, which is Wentz out of here, that's going to satisfy you enough to look at this situation and be like, I don't care that they're a dumpster fire and have no clue and have no vision. I just want Wentz out. That's a flawed mindset. And we had an interesting conversation on the Sports Bash today about Howie Roseman and the way that he's viewed around the league and just the way that he is as a GM. And one of the strongest parts of life and business is communication. He might be good at some of the X's and O's inside of the GM room, if you will, which, to be fair, he is. He's not good at the drafting side. He's good in other areas. But one thing that he's brutal at is communication, is relationship building. And I wonder, because that's monstrous. If you can't relate to people, but you do good things strategically, doesn't that kind of diminish what you do strategically? If you're an excellent guy at what you do when it comes to game plan, but you are terrible at creating a bond, loving one another, having this relationship where you can trust one another. People despise you. They hate you. They can't stand you. But you're good at X's and O's. I think what you're so good at loses power. It doesn't have as much significance because you can't relate on a personal level. That's Howie Roseman. He might not be great at drafting. He's good in other areas, but that gets diminished because nobody likes the guy. No one can stand the guy. And it would be different if no one could stand him, like Bill Belichick. People can't stand him, but he's winning Super Bowls every single damn year. Fine. I can live with that. If that was Howie Roseman, I can live with that. That is not Howie Roseman. You had one Super Bowl in the 20-plus year tenure for Howie Roseman. So no. And a lot of that was carried by Andy Reid. So sorry. It's different if you're stubborn, if you're just this mean, cold-hearted guy, but it resulted in the hardware a lot. I just think it's crazy that you have someone up top in your franchise who people around the league can't stand. Brutal. Now, there are some that like him. And we were looking up all these polls and all these lists of people inside the NFL. High executive people voting on the best GMs in football, and he's constantly in the top 10. I know it sounds crazy, but people inside football value him, what he does. Top 10 GM in football. But people can't stand him. He's hard to work with. He's hard to relate with. But does that stop people from trading with the Eagles? Does it stop people from signing as a free agent? I'm just trying to put the pieces together. I think Howie Roseman is deserving to be out of here. And you need to get a fresh, new outlook. I don't think I'm stuck because I do think that this fan base thinks that he is the worst GM ever in the history of football, and I don't think it's to that level, but the recent stretch of Howie Roseman has been so terrible, has been so on the bottom, that it is justifiable to move on and get a fresh look and to kind of reshape this organization with a whole new identity. I'm just trying to look at all these different sides of Howie Roseman and the GMs around the league and this organization and put it all together. I can't stand Howie. Let me be clear. I'm on the side of I can't stand Howie Roseman, but I also don't think he's the worst GM to ever live either. We're getting into that Philadelphia reaction territory. Like, he deserves to be out of here based off of the downfall of this organization. I also don't think he's as bad as everybody makes him out to be as well. I think if he gets fired, there's plenty of organizations that pick up that phone instantly. As I said, high executive people around the league look at him as a top 10 general manager. And it's kind of hard to argue that based off of how the Eagles have been involved since he has been in place. So, for whatever that is. All right, let's move on to Jordan. Remember when a lot of Eagles fans were saying if the Eagles win one Super Bowl, I would be happy and not ask for anything now? Well, see, Jordan, that's ridiculous to me. The fact that you would even bring that up as if this is a normal situation that you're in. As if you fire the head coach a couple seasons after winning a Super Bowl, you essentially get forced to trading your franchise quarterback. This is historic. This is a historic fall. If the Eagles were competing and still playing football that gave you entertainment, if you had runs, if you were involved, it's a different conversation. in 2018, 2019, yeah, there were still stressful moments and frustrating moments, but at the end of the day, you were getting into the playoffs. You were playing the New Orleans Saints on the road. You ended up beating the Bears in a playoff game. If you had that where you were getting into the playoffs and getting playoff games, okay, yeah, you're still going to react and be upset if you lose. That's called being a fan. That's called watching football every single week and being like you're dove into a Philadelphia Eagles fan. That's fine. To think that this is standard, to think that this is normal, to think that this is okay, and you shouldn't be all right. You should be okay with this. You should be accepting. Because you won the Super Bowl 3 years ago, and since you were given the Super Bowl, you got to zip your mouth and shut up. That's a horrible way to look at this. That's unfair. That's unfair as a fan. There's times where this fan base goes overboard. Anybody can see that. Anyone with 2 damn eyeballs can recognize that. This isn't going overboard, though. Where we are now to react with this frustration and with the pitchforks. Look where we are! Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. That's where we are a couple years removed from a Super Bowl. Come on. Alex from Virginia Beach. Yo, Brodes, what's good? Do you think that Doug Peterson's coaching staff was a big reason why the Eagles have been horrible drafters lately? Do I think that Doug Peterson's coaching staff? No, I don't think it's Doug Peterson. Or do I solely put the blame on Howie? Love the pods. Keep up the good work. Alex, thanks so much for texting in. We actually had this discussion today on the Sports Bash, and it was brought up that there's so much being leaked from the organization right now. When adversity hits, it gets ugly. And when Howie Roseman leaks information, and this is where, it blows my mind with Howie, when things go wrong, things go south, let me put the blame on others. The fact that there's reports out there that the day after, a couple days after Doug Peterson was fired, there were reports that Doug Peterson wanted Rager, Howie wanted Jefferson. That's a lie. That's a flat-out lie from Howie Roseman and the organization leaking information to certain reporters that want to keep their relationship with the organization to write stories later on. This is all business, all right? Inside these beat reporters and these connections, there's stuff you got to put out that the information wants to get leaked out. The organization wants to leak out certain information. You do that as a reporter to keep your relationship with Howie Roseman. That's all a lie. It's all a lie. It's confirmed that that's not true. It's a bunch of bullshit. They're trying to manipulate people. They're trying to make it look not as bad. Howie's not as bad. No, Doug Peterson had no say. Doug Peterson got canned. He had no say. He had zero power. Don't tell me that the first-round draft pick right before Justin Jefferson was the guy who had no power's fault. That's a Howie problem. That's not a Doug Peterson coaching staff issue. They have too much power up top. They don't give enough power to the coaching staff. So it's all the issues with the two up top, Jeffrey and Howie, that want to have say, that want to put their fingerprints in the mix. When this team faces adversity, they show their true colors. It gets ugly, and that's where it gets back to, if you do things so well strategically, not everything though, 80%, 85%, 80% of what a GM does so well, 75% of what a GM does so well, and I'm just hypothetically speaking, I'm not tying that number to Howie Roseman, I'm just saying more in a broad stance. If you are good at 75% of what a GM does, but when adversity hits, it goes down to this level. You start lying. You start spreading rumors. You start having people write certain stories to make yourself not look as bad. And people know that. Teammates know that. Players know that. Coaches know that. And then there starts to be a talk. And that's why Dable didn't take the job and he's stuck in Buffalo. That's why Eric Bieniemy and people of the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, they don't want to tie themselves to Howie Roseman anymore because he blows up connections. And that's ugly. It really is. It's ugly. This is from, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, a YouTube comment, Geesh13. What's a day in the life of Brodes like? So we're going to transition from a little bit of outside the box. I thought this was a very interesting question. Right now, I'm in head down mode. I feel 24/7. I'm constantly working somewhere. So I wake up in the morning and, we're starting to implement Coffee with Brodes, which is an edition of Sports Talk with Brodes. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be live on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. We're just going to talk, have coffee, and relax. More of a casual thing, not so much a podcast, just hang out. I did my first episode on Monday. Insane results. Loved it. Loved reacting with you, going back and forth, talking with the chat. You guys are amazing. I appreciate all the support. Without you, this can't happen. So that's going to start being implemented into my mornings. Sometimes I record a podcast as well. Then around 12:45 or so, I head down to the 97.3 ESPN studios, and we do the Sports Bash from 2 to 6 p.m. with Mike Gill and myself. I head home. I get home around 7 o'clock. As soon as I get in, dinner's on the table. Thank you to the fiance. She does an outstanding job at having dinner on the table for me when I walk in. I turn on the Flyers. I turn on the Sixers. I turn on the game of the night. I get my notepad. I take my notes. I watch the game. I analyze things. And then when the game is over, I come back and I sit down right here and I record a podcast. So it's pretty much wake up, talk sports, go to the studios, talk sports for a 4-hour show, come home, watch the game, analyze it, sit here, talk sports, upload it, and go to bed. What do they say? Wash, rinse, repeat? Wash. Yeah, is that what it is? Why am I getting so jumbled? Wash, rinse, repeat? Yeah. That's a day in the life of Brodes right now. That's what I do. That's my Monday through Fridays for the most part. Weekends a little different, a little bit more time. Saturdays are my off day. Sundays I work at the studios again in the morning. I do the 10 a.m. to noon, The Locker Room with Billy Schweim. I produce that show, so I am the producer for that show on Sunday mornings. Yeah, head down mode, man. A lot of sports talk, a lot of watching sports, and really keeping that head down and doing as much as I possibly can. But to put it into a little bit of perspective, that's what I do. All right, so a couple other things here. Sixers. Hey, Brodes, how do you feel about the Sixers potentially trading for Thad Young? It's a rumored interest for him around the league, possibly coming here, and could fill that backup 4 role. What do you think about him coming back? I think they need to do something. I would be okay with it. I don't have a problem with it. If they went out and got Thad Young, I'm not disappointed in it. If they went out and got Thad Young, I'm not screaming up and down for joy thinking that this is the difference maker. I know he's a different version of himself now than he was when he was here the first time. The old Thad Young, the Thad Young of the early days for the 76ers, are getting a completely different player. I think they need to attack that, and they're so vocal about it. You feel it's inevitable. They're going to do it. So with Thad Young, yeah, I think that would be a nice addition. I know P.J. Tucker's another name. Any sort of 4 position could help this team out tremendously based off of having to have some of these guys log a ton of minutes. Tobias Harris is playing such a big role right now, and Ben Simmons off the ball having to log minutes there, but you also want to try and use him at the 5 as well. So I would be okay with Thad Young. I think that's a name that intrigues me. Is that the difference in going out and winning a championship? I don't think that that's one of those moves that makes me think insanely different about this team, right? I don't put this team, let's say, super close to a title. Now Thad Young's here, and it's, definitely a title team. But they do need to fill that role, and that's a name, that's kind of the style that I would look for, a Thad Young. It makes a nice impact, a nice little impact. I don't know if it's the difference once again, but it's something that benefits this team, and you're in this situation right now where you're close. You're close, so you got to make moves. And you got to hope and pray that, Joel Embiid can help you get to the promised land. Tobias Harris can continue this version of basketball. And Ben Simmons and his inability to shoot the basketball doesn't hurt this team from an offensive standpoint in the playoffs in the half-court sets. This is from No Name. No Name texted in. I guess we didn't get a name on that one. What do you think about Ben Simmons so far this season? And how far do you see the Sixers going? I see Eastern Conference Finals versus the Bucks or Nets, in my opinion. I think Ben Simmons started out poor, and it was putrid. It was a horrible watch, and it was very disappointing. He kind of found his rhythm, found his role in this new system with Doc Rivers. This I don't care what you do, and I just want you to go be you, which is funny because to a degree another coach did that, and it was hated, and then he decided to go vocal with the media, and that didn't work either, and he was still hated. You're getting a different version of Ben Simmons now, though, than you did earlier in the season. If you get this version of Ben, regular season version of Ben in the last handful of games, aggressive, that can work. That can be something that makes this team go far. I just question, will you get this version of Ben? Because people get so tied into this team and how they play now and think that that's what happens in the postseason. Once we get to the postseason, you will be reminded once again that all this nonsense, all these games against the Nets without their star players, and all these games against these teams that don't have anybody out there, it doesn't relate. Now, he had a strong game against the Lakers. He has strong games against good teams in the regular season, and some of that relates to the playoffs, but not all of it. I want Ben to play this way in the playoffs. I don't want him to fail. I want him to play this way in the playoffs. But based off of what he has done so far in the playoffs and hasn't added to his game in the way that he needed to for the spacing to change, it's fair and justifiable to ask the question, did he do enough? Now, maybe he did. And maybe the spacing of the team and Seth, Danny Green, these players surrounding him, and Joel Embiid being the lethal master that he is right now, all of that plays a role into him not needing to shoot. Maybe that is the case. Time will tell me that, though. I'm in a wait-and-see mode. And that's fine. You can be in a wait-and-see mode. It's okay to be in a wait-and-see mode. That doesn't mean you hate the guy. Doesn't mean you hate the team. Now, there were moments where I hated Ben Simmons because he was god-awful. An unacceptable god-awful from a Ben Simmons caliber player. It has changed and it has picked up, but you can't deny that he's one of the most frustrating, unique players ever. One of the most amazing skill sets ever, but one of the most demoralizing at the same time. It's unbelievable. A couple Phillies questions here. Hill from Virginia. Hey, Brodes, my question is, what has been your favorite Bryce Harper moment so far in Philadelphia? It's a great question. Of course, the first one that stands out is the grand slam against the Chicago Cubs with that crazy comeback. But I think that's too simple. How about when all the Phillies fans went to Nationals Park that first year? He had the bat flip and made that epic noise with that big time, how do you do? That was awesome to kind of get a stab back at his old team, although his old team ended up getting the last laugh with winning a World Series. But I digress. That was a cool moment. He had the walk-off against the Los Angeles Dodgers, but I remember the center fielder played it poorly. It bounced on the ground, and he tried to catch it on a short hop almost and went back towards center field. This game was in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park. That was another nice moment. He had a moment out in San Francisco. I just don't want to be basic, but the answer clearly is the Chicago Cubs game because that was outrageous. And it was so unbelievable when he hit that home run. That was a moonshot. That thing was crushed, murdered. And all I can picture is John Kruk. Oh, my God! Stepping over the call from Tom McCarthy after such a big moment. His natural reaction. Sometimes that's what makes a call beautiful, the natural emotion of it. But he clearly stepped over Tom McCarthy there. It's got to be that, the Chicago Cubs Grand Slam. Jimmy from Washington Township. Hey, Brodes, can't wait for baseball season. Wanted to ask you what I think Spencer Howard's role is going to be. Well, now that they picked up some pieces with this starting rotation, I don't know if he's going to be initially starting in the rotation. I don't know if it's going to be hey, Spencer Howard, we need you right away. They end up making some moves. They get Anderson. They get Matt Moore. And I'm not telling you these guys are studs and they're going to work out, but I think they're going to head into the regular season with the opportunity to win a job. So you're going to have Nola, Wheeler, Eflin, Matt Moore, and Anderson, and you're going to see where Vince Velasquez falls. You're going to see where Spencer Howard falls. But I think that's good because you can't put a lot of stress on the kid. He had a tough go last year in limited play. Seemed like another shoulder problem. Had a shoulder problem in the past. So I don't want him to walk in and be like, hey, you have to be this 4 or 5 guy. I'd rather it be, hey, let's work yourself back into this. He reminded me of Vince Velasquez, though, and it's so early, and I always bring this up. It's so early, it's so early, it's so early, it's so early. I'm not saying that this kid is a bust. He reminded me of Vince Velasquez, though. Ew. And that's a bad ew. We'll end here with some Flyers, a quick one. Vinny G. Carter Hart playing well below his/our standard. What needs to get done for him to get back to form? Defense has been holier than the Pope, but he's let in some weak ones. That is exactly the case. He has let in weak ones, but the defense is brutal. I think if you clean up the defense, you see better play from Carter Hart. I do think it's that simple. I think that there's a cause and an effect. When you have guys wide open and when you have guys 2-on-0s right in front of the crease area, that's going to be a problem. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to put a lot of pressure on yourself. You're going to have to try and make every single stop and overthink things. But if you're confident with your decor in front of you, if you know they're going to move the puck easily and well in transition, and when they see the puck, they're going to make a nice outlet pass instead of turning the puck over in the high slot area or allow someone to be wide open in the high slot. Two guys are in the corner looking at the puck, and the third defenseman's picking up who knows, and there's someone wide open in the high slot area. When that constantly happens over and over and over again, there is a psyche aspect of it. So I think it is as simple as you clean up the decor, which I don't think is possible without making a trade or getting better talent, which I don't know how much you can make a move because no one's giving up a top 4 defenseman who is a good shutdown role. They keep those players. Most of the times they keep those players because they need that help as well. So I don't know where you can just pick that guy off of a damn tree. This might be what you have. So if this is what you have, I don't think you're going to get enough. Sadly. Last hockey question. Colin Gamble. Was I a Bauer guy or a CCM kind of guy? Well, when I played, before I went to college, I was Bauer for the most part. And even when I played junior, it all depended. When I played junior in Vermont, we were sponsored by Bauer, so we got all free Bauer equipment. But when I played in Boston, my first year of junior, we were sponsored by Reebok, so we got a bunch of Reebok stuff there. CCM helmet, Reebok pants, CCM gloves. So it was a little different. But when I was in college, we were sponsored by CCM, so we got free CCM Super Tax, sticks, 4-rolls, or you could have got the other ones. I was always a 4-roll guy, the CCM V10 helmets. But when I was younger and I started to pay for my stuff and, I would have to buy my own equipment, I would naturally always go Bauer. But for skates, I was always Bauer. I never made the change to anything else. So I like the CCM stuff, though. As I continue to use it more, I would be okay. Because I always said to myself, if I made the NHL, obviously I'd go Bauer. I'd do this. I like the CCM. I really enjoyed the CCM V10 bucket, and I like the 4-rolls. I was always tied to Bauer, and I loved the 4500, some good swag back in the day. Always got to look good with the sty. I didn't really like how the helmets started to transition when they went to the React. I probably would rock CCM if I was in the show, hypothetically. And I guess we'll leave it there, because hypothetically, me being in the show, that's just ridiculous. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, Orbit Energy and Power is home to your solar experts in residential and commercial projects. They are completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. Their solar program eliminates your electric bill completely. They offer flexible financing solutions such as $0 down. They also provide water purification systems, backup energy services, battery storage, and more. So check out their information. It's all down below. Thank you all so much for listening. These Ask Me Anything podcasts are really starting to really take off, and I think it's super fun. You get these interesting perspectives, interesting questions, and it's great. So I'm really enjoying this. I know you guys are as well. So many questions came flooding in, and I apologize I can't get to all of them. There's so many that kind of was texted into the text board and all, but I appreciate everything you guys do. Be on the lookout for Coffee with Brodes, Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., Twitter, YouTube, Twitch. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next time.